Student bhikkhu protests that defied court orders dispersed in fort. Individual evading court provided compensation similar to what is given to an oppressed journalist. Minister Arjuna draws the attention of the President. 40% of the Peradeniya University student population fall ill due to influenza. Has the government's FCID investigations derailed? Questions raised from the anti-corruption front.
Hello there, very good evening and welcome to your primetime news bulletin. I'm Shrin Silva.
And I'm Nicola D'Souza. We start off with our top story. The Peradeniya University has been evacuated following the spread of the influenza virus. According to the university's medical center, 40% of the student population has taken ill.
The administration was swift to indefinitely close the university following the spread of the disease. Last week, 50 students took ill and were reported to the medical center. By the end of the week, the number increased to 250. Thereafter, over 500 students sought medical assistance. In total, over 3,000 students are ill. We closed the university in order to prevent the spread of the illness. Some of the students have been transferred to the Peradeniya General Hospital for further treatment. The student population is around 12,000 and around 7,500 live in dorms. When they are in the dorms, there is a high possibility of the illness spreading. Around 40% had taken ill by this week. 41 are being treated in-house. 34 students suffered from respiratory issues and were transferred to the Peradeniya hospital. We have been given leave and the administration is yet to inform us when to return.
The dorms are closed from 12 noon and we appreciate the measure because it would prevent the spread of the disease. The university made a wise decision.
The AH1N1 virus has affected the general public of the central province. 17 persons have died so far. The health authorities request the general public to refrain from gathering at public places. There has been a spike in the report of influenza patients across the country. During the past 3 months, 53 deaths have been reported as a result of dengue. At present, many arrive at private and government hospitals for treatment to battle influenza and dengue. And it is in this backdrop that the Government Medical Officers Association is preparing to engage in a strike action on Friday over the issue in relation to the private medical colleges. The doctors have announced the island-wide strike action, but there appears to be a crisis in the country. We will also step away from private practice as well on that day. We will also look into the option of continuously stepping away from private practice. Don't the doctors have a heart? Rural people are being inconvenienced. We have been made helpless.
This is wrong. We are poor and we cannot afford to pay for medication.
This is a nuisance for the general public. I'm not blaming the public servants, but there has to be a mechanism to address the matter. Don't they feel the pain that we are in?
When they go on strike, we are destitute.
Views were expressed in Parliament on the matter of private medical colleges.
7,200 medical students have stepped away from lectures for almost 70 days. Have you met them and inquired into their issue? Was it those from Saitam who voted for you? The courts have given a ruling. The people's power has been given through this parliament to courts. Therefore, when a court ruling is given, should you boycott because you cannot accept the court ruling? If this country boycotts all matters because it cannot accept court rulings, where would this country be?
Police fired water and tear gas to disperse a protest organized by the Inter-University Bhikkhu Federation.
According to the police, protesters had to be dispersed as they were in violation of a court order by entering Lotus Road. Later, the protesters arrived at the ceramic junction and continued their protest against private medical colleges. Police fired tear gas again to disperse the protesters.
මහජනයාට වාහන වලට බාධාවල් නොවන ලෙසට කටයුතු කරන්න එසේ නොකරුවොත් ඔබලාට විරුද්ධව නීතිය ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීමට බලය පාවිච්චි කිරීමට පොලිසියට අධිකරණයෙන් බලය ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා.
Later, the group who were assembled opposite the Fort railway station, too were dispersed.
Hello.
The demonstrators protested, demanding that the private medical college be closed down. They further charged that the intake of student bhikkhus to universities have been slashed. The public were greatly inconvenienced due to protest at multiple locations.
මේ ළමයි කරන වැඩේ ඉඳ හරිම ප්‍රශ්නයක් වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. හිතා ගන්න බෑ මේව ඉවරයක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ කවද්ද කියලා අපිට මේ රස්සාවත් එක්ක එපා වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. හැමදාම පිටකටින් උද්ඝෝෂණ කියලා වැඩක් නැහැ. මේ හරි පිස්සු වැඩ මේවා. මම නම් අනුමත කරන්නේ නැහැ.
Are all these individuals clad in robes members of the venerable clergy, or are they pretenders? If individuals are pretending to act as members of the revered clergy, shouldn't steps be taken to root them out of the benefit of the Buddha Sasana? Even if those who are clad in robes are real members of the clergy, doesn't their behavior tarnish the sanctity of the robe? Information has come to light on the income generated by 6 political parties of the country. The information was revealed through a release issued by the Campaign for Free and Fair Elections, or CAFE, following information gathered by financial statements of political parties.
The information received under the Right to Information Act is as of 31st of December 2015. According to the release issued by CAFE, the Ceylon Workers' Congress has generated a total income of 150 million rupees by the end of 31st December 2015. The Janata Vimukti Peramuna has generated a total income of 87.1 million rupees during the same time period. CAFE notes that the JVP has methodically listed all information in a descriptive manner, including the salaries of its MPs and income generated by the sale of vehicles. The income generated by the United National Party was recorded at 36.3 million rupees, while the revenue recorded by the Sri Lanka Freedom Party stands at 19.7 million rupees. CAFE in its release adds that the United People's Freedom Alliance has recorded a sum of 2.4 million rupees in revenue, which had been generated through donations to the party. Further, the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress has recorded a total revenue of 1.8 million rupees. A total of 1.8 million rupees recorded as revenue generated by the Jatika Hela Urumaya includes a sum of 213,880 rupees, which has been donated from the salary of the party leader, Partili Champikaranawaka. CAFE notes that information has come to light that reports maintained by political parties lack transparency. The organization stressed on the importance of creating effective dialogue to demand more financial transparency.
The joint opposition convened a media briefing today.
The debt to be settled on the Hambantota port is 155 billion rupees. Annually, the government spends 658 billion to pay salaries of government sector employees. So is the Prime Minister saying that they will not be able to pay the salaries of public sector employees next month? Due to the price of crude oil falling, more than 600 billion rupees has retained in the country, which would otherwise have gone out of the country. If this is untrue, the Prime Minister can issue a statement and say so. So they could have settled the debt of the Hambantota port with the 600 billion rupees. If the debt burden was increased by 285 billion rupees due to the depreciation of the rupee, the Hambantota port debt burden will be 155 billion rupees. If the rupee was not depreciated, they would not have to sell the Hambantota port. What will they sell next year? Will the debt burden be settled by next year? If what the Prime Minister says is right, they will not be able to pay the salaries of the state sector employees. Despite the lies and all their other tactics, they haven't been able to restore the confidence lost over the central bank bond scam and damages caused to the financial markets.
Whose funds did perpetual treasuries use to make bids during auctions? Zulfiq Fazan brings us details from day 27 of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry.
Director of Information Technology at the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Wasantha Alvis, provided evidence before the Commission. Today, the tribunal was taken through all detailed transactions of Perpetual Treasuries Limited made on the 29th and 31st of March 2016, which were to be settled on the 1st of April 2016. Additional Solicitor General Milinda Gunathilaka informed the Commission that Perpetual Treasuries Limited funded their purchases of treasury bonds primarily from borrowings from the central bank using the intraday liquidity facility. Funds under intraday liquidity facility are provided interest-free upon the primary dealers transferring eligible securities to the central bank. It must be returned to the bank at the end of the day. On the occasion in question, Perpetual Treasuries Limited was in default of 11 billion rupees to the intraday liquidity facility of the central bank. It has happened only 4 times in the past, and the largest other violation in relation to the ILF was 350 million. This particular violation by Perpetual Treasuries Limited was 33 times more than that. It came to light that Perpetual Treasuries Limited had used the intraday liquidity facility several times on one day, which led them to the said default, for which they were also fined. There was a little bit of tension at the Presidential Commission of Inquiry today when the evidence was being led by the AG's department. From time to time, the attorney representing Perpetual Treasuries Limited made interruptions, and that led to the tensions at the start of the commission and towards the end of today's proceedings. However, all these tensions were calmed down, the proceedings continued and were adjourned to Thursday, where this witness, Wasantha Alvis, will be called again to provide evidence. From the Presidential Commission of Inquiry appointed to investigate and inquire into the treasury bond issuance, I'm Zulfiq Fazan for News First.
South Africa's credit rating has been cut to junk status by the ratings agency S&P Global. The agency said that political upheaval, including the recent sacking of Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan, was endangering the economy.
S&P also expressed concern over government debt and in particular the expense of supporting the state energy firm Eskom. The news put more pressure on the rand, which was down 2% against the dollar. The sacking of Finance Minister Gordhan has seen a safe pair of hands and with a reputation of financial prudence led to a 4% fall in the rand and prompted strong criticism. His replacement as Finance Minister, Malusi Gigaba, was seen as part of a cabinet reshuffle by President Jacob Zuma. S&P explained its decision, stating that, and I quote, internal government and party divisions could, we believe, delay fiscal and structural reforms and potentially erode the trust that has been established between business leaders and labour representatives, including in the critical mining sector. With talk about a possible cabinet reshuffle circulating in the political sphere, we turn to economist Chandra Jayaratne to inquire into whether a possible cabinet reshuffle could affect Sri Lanka in a similar manner.
In our particular case, we have a very strong presidency, a presidency that has the backing of a stable parliament, and I do not think that credit ratings can be affected by a mere reshuffle. Credit rating agencies have become quite sensitive after a financial crisis that they went through in the past. In such a situation, Sri Lanka should be looking not at what happened elsewhere, but Sri Lanka must have a very stable political environment. Yes, because, very especially because we are under stress over our debts, repayment of those debts, renegotiation of new debts to replace the debts that need to be paid, and raising new debt to carry on with the development work. So what should happen? There should be absolute political stability, together with consistency in policy. Announcing one, withdrawing, changing, changes then fail to come to fruition, budget speeches not implemented, budget debates not held in a proper way, and most importantly, enactments like the tax enactments not in place when the tax year starts. These are functionality issues. So if you take these four elements, political stability, clapping hands together, looking at the future as the nation and the people, being in functionality, together with an administration that shows no corruption, limitation of waste, and above all, no nepotism, that's the signal that we need to create.
Railway trade unions recently charged that Sri Lanka Railways has suffered a loss of 470 million rupees owing to a controversial deal with private operators. Last week, the trade unions also handed in a letter highlighting their concerns to the Anti-Corruption Secretariat. General Manager of Railways, BAP Ariyaratne, speaking to Newsfirst today, denied these allegations.
We cannot misuse public property, but they have not presented these agreements to the Attorney General for his inspection and have not sought the advice of the Attorney General. The Cabinet of Ministers has not given their approval for it. So due to these weaknesses in the agreement, there was a major issue in defining certain conditions of the agreement. The agreement says it is a modification of the carriages. Once an agreement is reached incurring an expenditure by an organization, we cannot tell that organization to leave. We have sent them all the bills we collected since the year 2011 and they have paid us the required amount. We have signed for 5 years. It is expired in the month of March in 2016. Then it was extended. The Cabinet of Ministers directed us to extend this for 3 or 6 months. They wanted us to follow the proper procedure. Later we realized we cannot complete the procedure in just 3 to 6 months. We had extended it till the 31st of March 2017. So now it is over. We have called the tenders now. Considering all these allegations levelled against us, we decided to stop this, even if the passengers do not obtain this service. I have not given my permission to get these carriages.
Ariyaratne also responded to allegations with regard to the importation of 12 locomotives for service in the upcountry railway line.
The tender board procurement committee, on recommendations of the technical committee, has taken a decision to award the tender to a American locomotive manufacturer. Yeah. I don't want to mention the names, right? So, but there is a procedure. Anybody who participated for the tender has a right to make an appeal to the appeal board. So what I understand that some bidders have made already some appeals. It is a matter for the appeal board to go through and give their decision. Right? After the appeal board give their views and the decision, recommendations, based on that, procurement entity will take a decision how to proceed further.
General Manager of Sri Lanka Railways, BAP Ariyaratne, said the controversial agreement which allowed private companies to operate railway carriages has been terminated with effect from the 31st of March 2017. We thank General Manager of Railways, BAP Ariyaratne, for speaking with Newsfirst and expressing his views on allegations levelled against Sri Lanka Railways.
It has been reported that the Cabinet's Subcommittee on Economic Management has proposed that complaints regarding tenders submitted to the Police Financial Crimes Division be directed to the National Procurement Commission. This was revealed by organizations that are against corruption.
Complaints on tenders made after the 8th of January 2015 are to be directed to the National Procurement Commission. It is reported that the proposal was made at a meeting of the Cabinet Subcommittee on Economic Management on the 15th of March 2017, also attended by a senior consultant to the Prime Minister. Organizations against corruption say that the Ministry of Law and Order has intervened in the matter and already called for a report. Hasty Inspector General of Police made a request to the FCID to remove all complaints regarding tenders made after the 8th of January 2015 from its purview and submit them to the National Procurement Commission. Ongoing investigations, are they only to do with the matters related to the previous administration? The law does not consider if it was the past or the present. The FCID is accused of delays in investigations. I am personally aware that financial crimes are not like any other crime. These are termed as white-collar crimes. It used to be related to books, but in today's society, it is mainly related to computers. Changes have been made to some matters and data has also been erased in some cases. When an investigation commences, it is only the detective that is handling the case that knows how complex and time-consuming it is. Sometimes people are interrogated for weeks. Therefore, investigating these types of crimes are not an easy task. There are around 15 complaints that have been made against 15 government ministers. There is one complaint where a Prado SUV was imported under a permit for a tractor. There is also a complaint on the sale of paddy for a lesser price. A building has been obtained for the Ministry of Agriculture for which over 200 million rupees have been spent. There is a complaint against that too. We have made a complaint against the mastermind of the treasury bond scam. The tender for the Motherwell port is marred with impropriety and we have made a complaint against causing losses to the tune of 450 million rupees. Investigations on those complaints are not taking place. At this time, the Committee of Parskiralingam is not only selling off state property, but it is also protecting the rogues and is trying to destroy the evidence of some of those cases. The Committee of Parskiralingam has no right to take over a file from the FCID because it is not a court. If complaints investigated under police FCID is directed to the National Procurement Commission, these investigations could be derailed because the Commission does not have the proper human resources or experts. Also, there have been no official appointment to the National Procurement Commission. If there is an attempt to undermine the investigations even before constitutional institution is established, then it is a serious problem. This could be an attempt to cover up all the allegations made against the government in relation to fraud and corruption and a shameless move to transfer all documents related to investigation to another location. General Secretary of the National Procurement Commission, Sita Vithanarachis, said that the Commission was not made aware of any attempt to move documents from the Police Financial Crimes Investigation Division to the Commission.
I see this as an attempt being made to restrict and delay the actions of the FCID because there is no point in handing these actions conducted by the FCID over to newcomers when their identity and mandate is not very clear. You need specialists to investigate such cases. This is similar to an express train derailing. I personally do not approve of this because it causes delay, aids the corrupt and does not help the country.
Action TV highlighted previously how this plot of land, which is located facing the Lake House Junction in Colombo, has been leased out to a private company by the Urban Development Authority for a 50-year period without the approval of the authority's Board of Management. Last Friday, when Action TV requested the chairman of the UDA to furnish the required letter approving the transaction, the chairman of the authority was unable to do so. The chairman of the UDA informed Action TV today that the relevant document had been located and forwarded a copy of the said letter via email. This is that document. A handwritten note from the authority confirms that this document as a minute from the meeting of the Board of Management that was held on the 28th of last month. However, the point that Action TV is highlighting is not addressed in this document. What Action TV is highlighting is that at the time of entering into a long-term lease over the property in question, the required approval of the Board of Management had not been obtained. A report from the Auditor General's Department also confirms that a long-term lease agreement had been entered into on the 17th of last month. Accordingly, what has been provided to Action TV is an extract of the minutes of the meeting of the Board of Management that took place on the 28th of last month, 11 days after the lease agreement was signed. According to the minute that has been provided to Action TV, the chairman had informed the Board of Management that a long-term lease had been entered into over the land in question. However, the minute does not state when this lease was entered into. The extract further states that a detailed report in this regard will be tabled at the next meeting of the Board of Management. It should be noted that the action of the chairman to enter into a lease agreement whereby the lease was to receive a benefit of approximately 800 million rupees, while the government was to incur a loss in excess of 1.8 billion rupees, was carried out without the knowledge of the Board of Management.
Minister Arjuna Ranatunga, in a letter to President Maithripala Sirisena, has said that an individual who had been evading court has been recommended to receive benefits under a special scheme initiated for journalists subjected to harassment and other forms of oppression.
Minister Arjuna Ranatunga has informed President Sirisena that Sandaruwan Senadira, the editor of Lanka e-News, has been recommended to be a beneficiary of this scheme. Sandaruwan Senadira is reported to be evading court. In his letter, the minister notes that the individual in question creates false news against those who were committed to bring about the present government to power. The minister notes that after he obtained the position of Minister of Ports, Sandaruwan Senadira had contacted him seeking advertisements and funding. He notes that after rejecting these requests, Senadira had resorted to a campaign of mudslinging against him. The minister alleges that Senadira is an individual who has carried material against judges in order to influence judicial rulings and engaged in disgraceful conduct in violation of all media ethics. The minister questions as to how such a person could be recognized or accepted by the government.
He's an extortionist, and he has used his media freedom or ability to write to extort money on the guarantee that if you pay me money, I will not write anything. And in the process, he has attacked the Supreme Court judges, the Court of Judges, the High Court judges, and the magistrates. At the same time, some people have recommended that he should be given an award. I believe this is nothing but a mockery of the entire system of justice. This man is now, there's an open warrant out against him. He has to be arrested if he comes to Sri Lanka. They arrested at the airport, and he's a fugitive from justice.
President Maithripala Sirisena paid his last respects to the chief prelate of the Sri Lanka Amarapura Mahanikaya, the late Most Venerable Daldana Sri Nanisara Thera.
The remains of the late Thero is currently placed at the Sri Vidya Vijayarame in Nugegoda. President Maithripala Sirisena, who paid his last respects this afternoon, also conveyed his condolences to the Mahasangha. A large number of parliamentarians and ministers paid their last respects today as well. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe as well as former President Mahinda Rajapaksa paid their final respects to the late Thero last night. The final rites of the late Most Venerable Daldana Sri Nanisara Thero will take place on Thursday with full state honours at the Independence Square.
A debate took place in Parliament today in relation to fraud and corruption.
Canville Holdings පෞද්ගලික සමාගම පහුගිය ආණ්ඩුව යටතේ ආරම්භ කර
Canville Holdings Limited is a state-owned public enterprise set up by the former regime. As we mentioned, the main shareholders of this entity is the Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation, Litrogas and Employees Provident Fund. Operations took place under Piyadasa Kudabalage and Kamini Senarath, who each only owned a 10 rupee share. Canville Holdings formed two subsidiaries, and one is Helanka Hotels, which commenced the Hyatt Hotel in Hambantota, and the other is Sinolanka Hotel, which began the Hyatt Hotel project in Kolpiti. These have been investigated. What actions have been taken against Kamini Senarath and Piyadasa Kudabalage for misappropriating state funds in a large scale?
කුඩාබාලගේ යන අයට එරෙහිව ගනු ලැබූ ක්‍රියාමාර්ග මොනවාද?
කුඩාබාලගේ මහතා මේක අරගෙන තියෙන්නේ දීමනාවක් හැටියට.
Kudabalage has obtained nearly 20.8 million in allowances, which is almost 600,000 rupees a month. It can be termed as a large allowance based on whatever was done. He was given 10 times of what is offered to a parliamentarian. We have not probed into that yet.
ඒකට අපි විභාගයක් කරලා නැහැ.
ඔය ගාමිණී සෙනරත් තමයි
Kamini Senarath was the President's Chief of Staff for former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. In addition to that, he was the Chairman of the People's Bank, Litrogas, Canville Holdings Limited, as well as both subsidiaries. He was also the Chairman of the People's Lanka and the Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation. He was also the President's Chief of Staff, which had a staff of around 2,000 people. While being the Chief of Staff, he also chaired several economical and financial institutions in the country. During the previous regime, the heads of the government officers misused public funds in an exorbitant manner. You have been elected into the government and yet there haven't been proper investigations. In addition to Piyadasekuda Balagi and Gamni Senrath, an individual by the name of Neil Bandara Hamuhina has served as a director of Lanka Hotels and Sri Lanka Hotels. He is now serving as an additional director to the Ministry of Law and Order, which overlooks the police. The name has also been proposed to attend an anti-corruption forum.
දූෂණ විරෝධී සම්මන්ත්‍රණයක් සඳහා යන්නත් ඔහුගේ නමත් යෝජනා වෙලා තිබෙනවා.
Based on the reports, Neil Bandara Hapuhinna has not obtained large amounts. He has served as a consultant and obtained a sum of 160,000 rupees. I was informed that he is not with the Ministry of Law and Order.
Then where is he?
I don't know where he is, but he is not with the ministry.
Well, that's a wrap of your primetime news. Before we say goodnight, on behalf of the Newsfirst team, we'd like to wish Shane a very happy birthday.
Thank you, Nicola. And with that, we wrap up this edition of your primetime news bulletin. Thanks a lot for joining us. Good night.